Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Game Bolts Games on Tap podcast, where we. Whoop, sorry. Welcome to the Games on Tap podcast, our bi-weekly podcast, where we discuss the things at large in the gaming world in a more open-ended context. I have with me today, making his return bout, Jason.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well, and for the first time on a podcast, we got some new blood with us. Thomas,
Hello, what's up?
what's up, man? So the way the Games on Tap works is we have a more open-ended discussion. We have our Game Bolt podcast, which is all about the news, reviews, and everything going on with the site. Games on Tap is a little bit more open-ended. We like to kind of have a general discussion, and this week's is going to be a special E3 edition where we're actually going to run a little bit longer than our normal hour, 5 minutes. We're going to probably go to about an hour and a half because E3 it's such a huge event. And there's can be so much can be said about everything that goes on with E3. So I'm going to start out with explaining how we begin Games on Tap, which is everybody involved, whether they're drinking an alcoholic beverage or not, has a drink. They review their drink to start out with, and then we move on to the discussion at hand. So I picked up a case of Samuel Adams, their seasonal. It was their seasonal variety pack, and I'm actually drinking their summer ale, which is I have never actually had this. I'm a huge Sam Adams fan, but this is actually a wheat beer, and it's got a lemon flavoring to it. So I'm kind of wondering if it's going to be like the summer shandy that the Leinenkugels has. So I'm going to give this a shot. Yeah, it's basically the summer shandy from Leinenkugels. It's actually got a surprisingly good head on it for me taking it right out of the bottle. And it goes down fairly smooth. It does have that little bit of lemon zest flavor. It's fairly flat though, in terms of overall taste. It's like the initial taste that you get in your mouth. There's no residual flavors. I'm a real fan of like the taste of a beer staying in your mouth afterwards. And I'm getting nothing with this one, which is kind of upsetting. But yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I think I've mentioned before. I'm not much of an alcohol drinker anymore. I used to be, but I definitely I loved like any kind of Sam Adams before. So
yeah, I've been gravitating towards Sam Adams, their Boston Lager. When I was at the store the other day, I was like, I could get a case of the Boston Lager, or I could, try to branch out. And I was like, well, let's pick out their summer pack. And so far, I had they had a Belgian, I think it was a Belgian session ale, and I tried that last night, and it wasn't bad. It's the thing I don't like about Sam Adams. A lot of their outside of their Boston Lager, their Boston Lager has like this taste that kind of stays with your palate. And it builds upon itself as you're drinking the lager. With that Belgian session ale and this summer ale, I'm really not getting that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no like complexity to the taste at all.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Yeah, like it just tastes kind of like a lemon-esque beer. So Jason, what do you have for us tonight?
Yeah, so as everyone knows by now, because I've been on a couple of these, I'm the non-alcoholic drinker. So again, I've got another double shot espresso from Starbucks. So as the occasion goes, let me take a sip. Oh yeah, getting hyped up now.
Feel it. By the end of this, you're just going to be vibrating. We're going to be able to hear your like headset just jostling around.
Oh, dude, I have to get hyped up now because Cody just told me before we started Rhythm Heaven is on the eShop now, and I'm like, you're kidding me, I have to download this tonight. So I'm staying up late and playing that.
Oh, good heavens. All right. And Thomas, what about you? What did you grab for tonight's occasion?
So I got a glass bottle of Argo green tea with a ginger twist. I'm not a big alcohol drinker, but I like my sodas and my soft drinks, and I really love like green tea. So this stuff looks like it can cure cancer. It has like a lot of sediment in it,
Oh, what?
So I like shook it up a lot and to try and like dissolve it, and I took a sniff of it earlier. It smells spicy.
Oh, well, that's
Dude.
that's the ginger.
Yeah,
This sounds intense.
it's probably the most intense green tea I've ever seen. So I'm gonna go ahead and take a taste. Yeah, it's definitely not as spicy as I thought it was gonna be. It's actually really not that bad. It's only got it's got like a hint of lemon. It's got a lot of ginger in it, and it's only like 50 calories, but it's not like oversweet. But it's like the perfect amount of like. It's got like a really nice aftertaste too, and it's like the perfect balance of sweetness and regular tea.
Yeah.
And it cost me $2.50, so it better be good.
Have you ever, if you ever get the chance, I'm trying to think of like weird, like soda like beverages I've had. There is, because I used to live in Pennsylvania, so a lot of the breweries around there. I think I can't remember what brewery it was, but they had a non-alcoholic beer or root beer that had honey in it and had a very slight touch of ginger. And I don't remember the name of the beer, but it just has it's got like a bear stamped on the front of it because it's near the Appalachians and everything. And it was actually like one of the most like the tastiest things I've had. And I'm so upset that I can't get it. Now that I moved out to the Midwest, and I miss it so much.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of like substituting honey for sugar and like teas especially. I just think it tastes a lot better.
You're not wrong. That's usually how I end up drinking my teas. Actually, I'm trying to think of. I think it's the Appalachian Brewing Company that does it. Like I think that's just straight up what it is. I'm actually gonna have to like go and look that up. But we'll check back with everybody's drinks. I keep forgetting to. John says hi in the chat. Hey John. Welcome to Games on Tap for the week. I keep forgetting to like check back in and be like, how's everybody's drinks going? Because I think last week was when I had the Bloodletter or the Berserker Bloodletter, the Sumerian Pale Ale. And I had that last week, and like I took a sip of it. I was like, "Oh, this is really good." I didn't know that it was so good that I was going to finish my entire glass like 20 minutes into the podcast. I was like, "Wow, this is actually really good."
I need another one.
Well, that was like the next night. I went and like normally I take the craft because I get like big craft beers, so they come in like 16, 20 ounce bottles, like these oversized beer bottles. And like, it's always enough for like 2 or 3 glasses, depending on how thick it is. So like, usually I'll save it, but like the next night I was like, oh my gosh, and I gotta finish it. Like, all right. So this week on Games on Tap, we're actually going to be talking about E3, and we're going to go conference to conference. So I'm gonna start out with EA, which I was actually pleasantly surprised as a staunch EA hater. We're gonna go from EA to Bethesda, and then Microsoft, Ubisoft, Sony, and then I'd say we can talk about the Nintendo press conference, but it's like 2 days long at this point. And they've been talking about like just Legend of Zelda.
Well, I'm talking about Zelda for sure.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
we can definitely talk about Zelda. I'm pretty psyched for LOZ, the weirdest subtitle for Legend of Zelda game I think I've ever seen, because it seems so generic to me. Like it seems like it could be like The Witcher's subtitle or like it could be like Skyrim's subtitle.
Really? Yeah, because me and Cody were like, "Oh, this is amazing."
Yeah,
when we were streaming that, because it's like, man, like what I just think it's like an energetic, just like awesome name that goes with the whole setting of that game.
I like it. I like the look of that game. We can spend some time talking on that. We've got some extended time tonight, so we can kind of delve into this. So let's start off with the kind of the first press conference that kicked things off. So I guess it was I don't know if EA's would be considered day zero, but it's more like pre-day zero, day zero eve.
Yeah, Bethesda and EA started off the conferences on Sunday, and
Yeah.
then Microsoft, Sony, and Ubisoft all went on Monday.
Yeah,
Which
that's something pretty new too. I've been watching conferences since they started posting them online, which was like 13, 14 years ago or something. And it wasn't until like last year, I think, that conferences started going on days -1, which is really weird.
Yeah, they've been going earlier and earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm I'm okay with that. I'm okay with them kind of stretching E3 out a little bit,
Mhm.
especially because like I missed the EA and Bethesda conferences because I didn't get a chance to watch the Bethesda conference yet. I still want to, but I've been so inundated. Like I've been spending every waking second of the last like 2 3 days just watching conferences. I've been keeping like Reddit and Kotaku and Game Informer, GameSpot. Like I keep sitting there just refreshing the pages, like waiting for more news. I'm so hyped for this E3. I think it's E3. So like, let's start out like E3 as a whole. Like, what did you guys think? Because I thought that. Uh, John in the chat says, "Hi Thomas." Hashtag New Blood.
Hello.
Um, I think this E3 is easily the best E3 of this console generation, like by a long shot.
Yeah, I agree with you completely.
Uh,
I've been watching E3 for like 6 years now, and I thought like this was the best one I've seen.
mhm.
Yeah, there's a few that come like really close. Like I think 2011 was an amazing one. Last year was pretty good too. But yeah, this is way up there. It's a very very good conference year for like all of every conference that was
Yeah.
there. So
Like I honestly think every one of the conferences, I think they were all great conferences. Like I know there's a lot of internet hate going around for Ubisoft's because of how wacky it was,
Was it
but
because of the giraffe?
oh, it was because of the giraffe, because of the dance number, because people don't understand Aisha Tyler, and the two guys who came down for Trials of the Blood Dragon. Like, but I'm like, I was watching the Ubisoft conference, like, I am so entertained by how ridiculous this is, and like they all, like everybody in the Ubisoft press conference, like knows it. They're like, yeah, we did this dumb, goofy thing, but we're gonna own it.
that
But
was some of my favorite stuff, by the way, of the C3. Like just them like everybody kind of set the tone in their own way, but like the way they started off with like Queen,
oh
you
my
know, and then
god,
they
yeah,
just all the goofy stuff that came with it, like they were just having a fun time, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
and people were really down on them for that, but I thought it was fun, you know, like it was like, hey, yeah, put on a show for me, you know?
Uh,
I love how Aisha Tyler is just like she doesn't care. She doesn't care that she's hated, and she even like said that. It's just like, yeah, I know the internet just loves me, and
Well,
it's
the thing is like anybody who is involved with anything Aisha Tyler does to any capacity, like if you know anything about Aisha Tyler, she loves gaming, and she's actually a pretty big gamer, and she does a lot of voice acting stuff, and she has a cameo appearance in Watch Dogs that you can completely miss. Like,
yeah. She was in that part where I'm sorry, I keep interrupting you,
no,
but
you're fine.
that part where you can serve like when you can look inside people's houses through their cameras. She had that one part where she was talking with someone.
Yeah, Cody and John in the chat disagree with us, saying this was saying they think last year's E3 was better. You know what? I'll fight that.
Well, are you just talking about the Sony one? Because like the Sony conference last year was astounding with Final Fantasy VII, but I'm not sure if the other conferences were
Oh,
as great as this year.
he said it's better for Sony, not overall.
Yeah.
You know what? I'll concede. I think last year was awesome if you were a Sony fan because I watched the Sony conference last year and I was like, dude, that's awesome. I wish I had a PlayStation 4, but that's awesome. But
Yeah.
like this year, like I've already started budgeting to buy a PS4 by the end of the year because I'm like, I really need to be part of the Sony universe now. Like everything they showed was awesome. But let's backtrack a little bit here and let's go to the EA press conference. And I'll let one of you guys take it off from there. Like if you watched it, or even if there's just anything EA news in general. Even if you didn't watch the press conference, like coming out of EA, what did you think about their showing at E3 thus far?
So right away, I got to say, you know, a lot of people are really down on them a lot too because of like all the sports stuff they have throughout, and generally, I'm not really too interested in that either. But they definitely had some like high points with, like man, that the Battlefield 3 trailer. or not the trailer. I'm sorry, but the gameplay.
Oh,
that they
Battlefield 1.
Battlefield
Yeah,
1.
Battlefield 1. Oh man, like just like the blimp coming down and like destroying buildings that just like
Oh
blew
my
me away.
God, yeah.
It just looks so good.
Did
I,
you watch the hour of play they had after the conference?
no, I didn't.
Okay, so after the conference, they had a 32 on 32 battle between they had like Battlefield pros, like people who were like top tier Battlefield players, and then they had like a bunch of rappers.
It was the weirdest combination of
It
people
was.
I've ever seen. It was Snoop Dogg and Zac Efron in the
What?
same room.
Yeah, Snoop Dogg, Zac Efron, Wiz Khalifa, The Game was there, Terry Crews, fucking Tyrese. I'm
Did
trying
he
to
have his shirt off with his
No.
bottle of Old Spice?
No, but he was jacked. Oh yes, and as Cody says, Snoop Dogg was smoking weed and didn't give two
Oh my God,
shits.
he was. That was
serious?
hilarious.
On live stream, there are photos of him just lighting up a blunt at the frickin' conference
I mean, what are you gonna do? You gonna throw out Snoop Dogg?
for smoking weed. Like,
Oh man,
um,
everyone must have been high there off that then.
and it's and then you had Major Nelson, you had C Nanners, who's like a popular YouTuber, and he's actually like competitive level player too, and it was pretty awesome to watch the actual gameplay. The gameplay for Battlefield 1, like I played Battlefield 2, I dabbled in Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4 came out and I watched it and I was like, no, I don't want to be a part of that. And I glanced over Hardline, but Battlefield 1 has actually become my most anticipated game of this holiday season only because I miss really intense really intense multiplayer competitive first person shooter games because that's what I grew up playing, and FPSs have always been my mainstay, and Battlefield 1 looks so intense.
It does. It looks like a really great game. I think if they just avoid the whole multiplayer snafu that happened with Battlefield 4, that can shape up to be game of the year material.
I'll agree with that because Battlefield 4 had like the rockiest launch.
Yeah, it didn't
Work?
go too hot.
At all.
Yeah. But, if I had to pick one game that like really blew me away at the E3 press conference, the EA press conference, I would say like Titanfall 2.
Oh my
Okay.
God. I'm a huge Titanfall fan.
I loved Titanfall when it came out, but I didn't have. My brother has an Xbox One, so I just played it on his. But now they're coming out with Titanfall 2 for PC and PS4. So I am gonna play the crap out of that game when it comes out on PS4.
Yeah, man. The multiplayer trailer was really interesting to me. Like that really grabbed my attention, especially like the end of that when they both eject from like both teams out of their mechs and they're like roping each
Yeah.
other in. And I was like,
Yeah. Just get
Um,
over here. Scorpioning in midair.
they're,
They have 6 new Titans and like pilot abilities this time around.
yeah, that was like all really cool. The thing that I was most interested in was the story mode because I'm a big story mode guy. But to me, I feel like that was less interesting than the multiplayer trailer. Like there was nothing really in the story mode trailer that kind of blew me away.
Yeah, by the end of the story mode, you're gonna care so hard about that mech. You're
The story of a man and his mech.
It's like a boy and his blob.
Yeah.
I was a huge fan of Titanfall 1. I think I mentioned this at one of the Game Bolt podcasts like 2-3 weeks ago. With Titanfall 1, I got Titanfall for the 360. And then I actually reached Gen 10 when I reached Gen 10 probably within the first month of play. So in the first month of play, I'd hit like the max prestige. And then 4 months later, when my 360 red ringed and I picked up an Xbox One, Titanfall, like the whole thing was like for $25 with all the DLCs. And I bought it again, and I got up to like Gen 6. Like Titanfall is, as a competitive shooter player, Titanfall is one of the most balanced experiences, and it was one of the most refreshing and interesting ones. And I'm really excited to see what they're going to do with Titanfall 2.
Yeah, the best thing about that multiplayer was the fact that no matter if you were in a mech or in a pilot, or whether you were just playing as a pilot or you were in your mech, you still felt like you could do things because you weren't like forced to go into your mech every time just to like do things on the battlefield, but like playing as a pilot, you could actually take down mechs if you played it correctly.
Yeah, and that's and the like the diversity they add with all that is awesome. Titanfall 2 had a great showing. Battlefield 1 had an awesome showing. And like you said, Jason, I'm not really big on like all the sports stuff.
Right.
And it's not because I think like sports games are bad. They just bad. They just don't appeal to me.
Right.
But all the stuff that they're doing with Madden, the showing that Madden has, like, I love that every year, like, the Madden games come out and they just look prettier and prettier.
Well, yeah, and then like I think the biggest thing that blew me away was FIFA. Like I used to be a big FIFA player, and I haven't played for the last few years because I don't know I just got kind of sick of it. Like it didn't seem like they were changing enough for me to like hop back into it. But for them to put like a story mode in FIFA, that's probably like the most interesting thing they showed at that conference. Like I actually got kind of excited. I want to like pick that up and play through the story mode.
Yeah.
Of FIFA.
I feel so bad for the dude who came out on stage and was
Oh,
like,
no.
"This is my story." I'm like, "Dude, you're phoning this in so hard, man. This is like high school. This is like middle school play level of acting." I was like, "Come on, man."
Yeah, I get that they were trying to get like people invested in stuff, but it seemed like they should have just kind of jumped into that trailer rather than put that poor kid out on stage and being like, "This is my story. Come with me," and then like jumping through a door. And, like, it was a little too much. I don't know.
Oh, it was goofy. I've been watching E3 cringe compilations as they pop up, and I'm surprised I haven't seen that part on there.
How many Alicia Tyler lady boners are on there?
Oh, all of them. Every one of them. The other thing that surprised me with EA is, first of all, a lot of the charity stuff that they're doing now, where they announced that they're going to be donating tons and tons of money, based on how gamers get together. I thought that was awesome. And then EA Origins, some of the indie games that they've talked about, like I believe on the Twitch chat, my picture is the avatar from Fee.
Mm-hmm.
When the guy came out on stage to talk about his game, to talk about Fee, you could see that he was either terrified or he was so happy and so proud to be right there at that moment. Like the dude could barely, like you could sense it in his voice. Like his voice was starting to crack. He was starting to tear up, and he got really passionate about talking about this game. And like, I even saw the trailer, like I saw the Fee trailer before I watched the conference. And then I went back and watched the conference, and watching that guy present it, Fee is actually, other than Resident Evil 7, Fee is like my game of the show. Like I'm so excited to play Fee. It looks like such a work of love.
Yeah.
And it looks unlike everything. There's a lot of like artsy indie games that are coming out that were announced at E3, and I think it's like it's in its own tier. Like I love it so much.
That's like one thing I want to talk about a little bit, because last year they brought out, they had the guy that talked about what was it, Unraveled.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing. Like he was kind of really nervous to be there, but that's one thing that I really like about EA is like they're really trying hard the last couple of years to like bring up these small indie devs that they're really trying hard to support and bring these small games to life. And it's just like I really appreciate them for doing that, because they were not like that a few years ago. So it's a really cool turnaround by them.
Yeah, I'm a fairly staunch. I was a big boycott EA guy for probably like the last year and a half, just because a lot of the things they did were kind of scummy as publishers in terms of like forcing deadlines and then
for sure.
Getting games released, and then for me, Star Wars Battlefront was like the most egregious thing, where you got this game that was really had a lot of shallow content, and then they're like, well, you can buy this game, and then in addition to that, you can buy this like, was it $60 or $80 freaking expansion pack, like season pass, that's going to add everything that probably should have been in the base game, and like that was the thing that just broke me on EA. But
they did the same thing with Mass Effect 3, when they basically, if you didn't pre-order it, you couldn't get the last crew member unless you paid for it, which was the Prothean. And like, I agree with it with your statement. It's like EA has not been at the top of their game when it comes to ethically correct
like
business decisions.
Yeah, like consumer friendly practices.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I know Capcom was known for that for a while too, where they would put all the content on the disc, and then they'd be like, "Give us $70 day one, so you can unlock all this stuff for Street Fighter or whatever, whatever." And there was actually, I know, a big lawsuit over that, or court
Hmm.
case, because I know some kids that they were online and they were able to get that content off the disc and like show people how to get it for free, and they took them to court, and ultimately, I believe the court decided that if the content's on the disc, you own it. So if you can get it, it's yours. So now,
Good.
like all those publishers, they don't put that stuff on the disc anymore. They just kind of rip it off and say,
There
"Hey."
was a lawsuit for Mass Effect 3 by one of the consumers who bought the game and said they didn't live up to their promises of like a
I remember
specific
that.
ending for every person.
Yeah, I think that was actually. I might be incorrect in saying I think that was a class action where he actually had a bunch of people kind of band together and say
Hmm.
that. See that I actually I I have not played through the Mass Effect series, and this is
It's one
completely.
of my favorite, and like all of video games, Mass Effect is like my favorite video game, one of my favorite video game series.
It's this is tangential to E3, but like when I see Mass Effect, and it didn't get the ending that people wanted. I get why people are mad, but to me, it just seems like a have your cake and eat it. You don't get to be the artists; we get to be the people that decide the end of it. When the
Yeah,
entire community is like, "No, make this what we wanted," and to me, that's just like, no, you don't like look at a piece of art or read a novel or go watch like a film in a cinema. You don't go out and experience those things, and then when it's ended, you go and you actively try to make the artist change what they've done, and that's what bothered me. And like for Mass Effect, like, and that whole issue, I disagree with that. But for the people who did like the Street Fighter Five stuff, like there was Street Fighter, was it Street Fighter Four? You said, Jason.
I believe it was four. Yeah,
The people who did that, like that's understandable to me, but that's tangential to the E3.
and then speaking of Mass Effect, they also released a air quotes trailer for
Oh
the Mass Effect
God!
Andromeda. I wanted to see gameplay so badly, and I was so
yeah,
convinced I would get to see it this time around. And they just at the end of the trailer, I was just like, well, sorry, confirmed. I'll take what I can get.
yeah. That was something I was just going to ask you too, saying that that was your favorite franchise. Like, how did you feel overall about like the way they presented that? Like, not even just the release date, but just the way like they presented that trailer. Like, I mean, they showed people like on computers like working on stuff. It's just like something EA is known for. Like,
Yeah,
how do you feel about that?
and they did the same thing last year, and they were
Yeah,
just saying, and they just like they did the people working on the computers, and it's like the message of the whole trailer was essentially, we're gonna bring you a great Mass Effect game, and it's like,
right.
I
Um,
just
But
like
how do we know?
I know. Can you just give me something? Is the
yeah.
Mako coming back? I know that's a rumor. Are we getting jetpacks? You know, you say it's going to be very exploratory based this time around. Can you just like elaborate? Just give me something, just like
So
a little bit.
that's like one thing that I feel like if EA could work on that, like from now on, if they could just present like gameplay, like just go and do a trailer, like there was enough, I think, in that video footage that they could have just put a trailer together. Like there's no reason that for half of that they had to show like people on their computer just like working on the game or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it
Yeah,
just takes you out of the experience. Like I want to be put in that
yeah,
experience, and every year they do this, or they show concepts, or like when they had the big Star Wars section they showed like six or seven teams, and they just showed them like typing away on the computer, like working on something. Like I want to know what you're working at. I want to see it. I don't want to just
yeah.
like hear what you're working on. I want to see
you
it.
know, it's like if the game isn't ready for like to show us gameplay, that's fine.
Yeah.
But at least give me a cinematic trailer or nothing at all. I
Right.
don't I don't
Yeah,
need to see I don't need to see like a video of computer screens and people promising what's going to happen.
there's a meme going around the internet, of it's Sailor Moon looking up at Tuxedo Mask, and Tuxedo Mask has like the EA logo like photoshopped over his face, and he has his cape up, and underneath of it is Mass Effect Andromeda, and he goes, "My work here is done," and Sailor Moon goes, "But you didn't do anything," and then he just leaves.
They did say that this time around for this Mass Effect Andromeda, it's going to be a completely new story, and Commander Shepard's story isn't the ending to Commander Shepard's story isn't going to have an effect on this
It's
on
it's
Andromeda.
from what it seems like it's going to be when it looks like it's taking place right after the human race discovers the Mass Effect technology, and they're trying to colonize like a new galaxy.
Well, I believe it takes place after Commander Shepard. So, like, they discovered the Mass Effect technology before Commander Shepard. So, it's like the mass relays are what allow people to move from point to point across great distances through the Milky Way galaxy. So, and what it looks like this time around is going to be moving from the Milky Way galaxy into the Andromeda galaxy. And I think, when we saw that woman waking up at the end of the trailer, she was coming out of what looked like cryostasis.
Yeah.
So my theory would be like they launched an exploratory mission from the Milky Way to Andromeda, and we're going to see, a lot of exploration and, colonizing this new galaxy and seeing all these new planets.
See, when I think about exploring a new place and there being a whole bunch of untapped resources, I think Mass Effect settlement building, and then I'm sold.
Yeah, that would be great if they can pull that off. I wasn't a huge fan of Fallout 4's settlement, but I think that's settlement building. But I think they had the right idea.
Oh, Thomas, you were not around when I was into Fallout 4. I had a problem with settlement building.
It was like it wasn't, in my opinion. I totally get why people like it, but it wasn't. I just wanted to like claim the settlement for myself and like leave it be.
Mm-hmm.
I feel, but they could still like do that with Mass Effect. But if they did like just like tweak that a little bit, I will absolutely be on.
Well, being that it's BioWare in a different company, I think they'll probably handle things fairly differently. I'm excited to see it. I actually have the whole Mass Effect trilogy. I
gotta play it.
Well, I got roadblocked when I started playing. I got to the point where you have that standoff with Rex, and I didn't do his mission to be able to save him. And I was like, I'm not playing through the entire trilogy without Rex. He's like my favorite freaking character.
Yeah.
So I was like, nah.
Mass Effect 2 is still like my second favorite game of all time. That game is fantastic. I love the story of Mass Effect 2.
But anyway, with EA's press conference, it made them seem less of like a comic book villain to me, like this greedy kind of like I imagine like a boardroom full of like these porcine cigar smoking people with like lots of rings and them just going, how can we rig the modern day consumer more? And I feel like with this press conference, and actually a lot of the stuff they've been doing over probably the last half year, the press conference kind of made me pretty optimistic about EA. I don't want to say cautiously optimistic. I'm actually, I remember I have fond memories of growing up with EA as a kid, and now I'd like to, they look like they're kind of getting back to the roots of like, awesome game design and fun games, and I'm really excited after this conference.
Yeah,
for sure.
Do you want to move on to Bethesda then?
Yes. I did not watch the Bethesda conference yet. Because I spent all day yesterday watching the Nintendo conference and watching the VODs of the EA conference. So did either of you guys actually watch the conference?
Yes.
Yeah, I watched Bethesda, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, my favorite thing was probably like right out the gate, like right when they started that, they went right to a trailer, and it brought up like a DOS commands, like on an old DOS computer, and it had like the id Software pop up with like all the games. Commander Keen was on top, and I was like, oh man, this is big, what are they showing? And then it went down, and he started typing in Quake to boot Quake, and I was like, oh
yeah.
So I just got like so excited. All they showed was a cinematic trailer, but that was enough. Like I was like, oh man, they're bringing Quake back, this is amazing.
Yeah, and it's for PC only.
Yeah, that's what everyone's saying, but like, are they really going to keep it that way? Like, I would be so bummed.
They said 120 frames per second.
Dear God. I am pretty excited I am actually loving the return of arena shooters with like the new Doom that came out, and then now Quake. I'm pretty pumped for that.
I think it has like the potential to be as competitive as the original Quake was back in the day, if they make it right.
Yeah. Other than that, there wasn't much else that was like very exciting. Like I'm not a big Dishonored guy. The show Dishonored 2. Are you any of you guys into Dishonored?
I
I
tr-
played.
I
Yeah, I
try.
played all of just Dishonored 2. Sorry, go ahead. I mean,
No, I tried so hard to get into Dishonored one. I actually played through half of Dishonored, and then I couldn't, like, from the get go, right off the gate, I couldn't get into it. And then halfway through the game, I was like, maybe I'll go back and try playing it over again from from a different route, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't get into it.
Yeah.
I see why it's a good game, and I see
Mhm.
why people like it, and I like everything about it. But for some reason, the product of everything being put together does not appeal to me.
Yeah, I can totally understand. I mean, I'm the same way. I played that game for a couple hours, and I really wanted to support it. It was like new IP. Like it just seemed like an awesome game, but I couldn't get into it. I don't know why. I think it was just like the way you use your abilities or something. Like I just couldn't like wrap my head around it, so I just could never quite get into it. But I mean, it's definitely a very interesting franchise.
yeah, I played through the whole thing. I liked it a lot. I wasn't fanatical about it, like the way some people are. I have a couple of friends who absolutely love that game, but as to I think 2 looks good from it looks like all the like the new like some of the new powers look really fun to play as, and I'm looking forward to it.
Two looks pretty intense. It seems a lot more combat focused than the first one. The first one put like a huge emphasis on stealth. And know you can go about it like as like a full frontal melee combat, but two looks pretty heavy on the like that first person melee stuff that they were pushing.
The ending when she turned into a shadow and like hung the guy up by his foot and like stabbed through him, that was that was a
Oh,
little gruesome.
that was intense.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I Dishonored. Looking at the two, I'm actually more excited for the stuff that Bethesda has talked about afterwards, like because they talked about the Elder Scrolls Skyrim remaster,
Oh
Yep.
yeah.
which if I hadn't already put around like 800 hours into Skyrim, I would probably be more excited.
Hmm.
But I've put so much time into Skyrim um, that like I don't know if I can justify going back to it with all the other games that are coming out this holiday season. Like I don't want to go pick up a game I've already put like around 800 hours into on the vanilla Skyrim. Like I had like one character with 500 hours, and then I had like four more characters that I played a bunch with, and then on the PC I have probably around 150 hours again. Because I got a PC specifically for modding Skyrim, and I don't know, like for people who love Skyrim, awesome. For people that want to get back into Skyrim, awesome. But for people like me that have kind of had their fair share of it, like I'm like, good, it's awesome, but I don't know if I'll actually partake in it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think the big thing that'll get people to come back to it is probably the mods. At least the console gamers. I think if you're a PC gamer, you probably use all those mods already anyway, so you
Oh
could care
god.
less.
Yeah.
But I don't mind picking it up again, honestly, because I think I put the least amount of time into that one than any of the Elder Scrolls. I don't know why. I think it came at a weird time in my life where I couldn't get into that one.
Yeah.
As much as like Oblivion, like I put way more time into Oblivion and probably 3 as well.
Oh, I think Oblivion. I only ever had one character at Oblivion, and I played him for a solid 2,000 hours somewhere in there.
Jeez.
It was a problem in high school.
Yeah.
Also, Cody says all of the old PC mods are compatible with the console version, which is
Really?
yeah, which is awesome.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it's been confirmed. There's a lot of stuff that's been confirmed like after the fact with the Bethesda conference. But yeah, it's like seeing it like what, I might pick it up like one day when I want to try to get back into Skyrim. Like I might go pick it up then. But like with all the other games coming out this holiday season, I'm more focused on those than a game I've already put more than enough time into.
It definitely seems like it's more geared towards the console crowd because it's not really offering anything new to people who play on the PC. You could already get those visuals on using mods, and so like being able to mod on your console and being able to get those updated visuals on your console makes it seem it's more
Yeah,
headed towards that direction.
and that's cool. And and then the other on the flip side with the Fallout 4 DLC announcements, I there's 3 more DLCs two of them are workshop DLCs, and one of them is Nuka World, which, from what they've said, is basically just a large settlement. Um, and not one that you partake in, but like kind of like Diamond City. Like it's just this huge city that you can go to, and apparently it's going to be people are speculating it's going to be more raider based, like less like societal and more so like just kind of like a conglomerate of like all these different people coming to live together.
So it's not going to be as expansive as Far Harbor then.
From what it sounds like, no. And that kind of makes me sad. Like Fallout 4 is potentially like one of my all-time favorite games because I love Bethesda games, but until Fallout 4, I think they didn't really understand how combat works. I think because like Skyrim combat, like once you like if you take Skyrim combat and then you go play like a character, literally any character action game, you play like Dark Souls, and the combat has so much unique. Like the chance to build your own unique abilities and skills, and Skyrim really doesn't have that. And that's what kind of pulled me away from Skyrim in the end. And then Fallout 4 came out, and the gunplay is awesome. But like these DLCs to me are not enough. Like they're not going to blow me away. Like I'm so happy that I'm going to get more workshop stuff because I love the settlement building, and I'm happy. Like I think Nuka World is going to be cool, but I'm kind of sad that like they've already said Nuka World is the last DLC we're doing for Fallout 4, and we're moving on with our lives, and that's what upset me the most. Not that it was Nuka World, but that after that, like they had one big DLC, and that's it.
From what I heard, though, they were sort of rolling back on that statement that it's like the final DLC. They weren't. I think people are misinterpreting what they mean by the final DLC. I think the messages are starting to get a little mixed. So I don't think the door is closed for another DLC after Nuka World.
I don't know. We'll see. Only time will tell.
Yeah.
And I love Bethesda. I love them so much. I never want them to stop making games. But we'll also, Nuka World could have some promise. I'm not saying it doesn't. Because so far I've loved all the DLCs that came out. Like The Machinist was like this fun little jaunt, and Far Harbor was freaking awesome. I loved Far Harbor. So we'll see where it goes with that.
Was there anything else, Thomas, that you noticed when watching that you think is worth mentioning?
From Bethesda?
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing we didn't talk about was the Prey trailer, and that was not real.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Prey reboot.
Yeah. I mean, there wasn't too much to talk about there. It was just a cinematic trailer.
Yeah, they're rebooting Prey. It's really all there is. There were a lot of cinematic trailers that were like, I'm so hyped for this thing. I have no idea what it's actually about. Like the new Prey could be good. I mean, you look at what Bethesda's done with a few other shooters, like what they're doing with Quake and everything. That'll be a lot of fun to see that reboot. Also, I think it's weird that they're rebooting a series that only ever had one game.
Yeah, that was it originally was called Prey 2, but I think they dropped that.
Yeah, which honestly they should have just called it Prey 2, or they should have given it some kind of title. I think it's funny that there's two games of the same premise of the same name.
Yeah, it's a little confusing.
Yeah, the last one came out in what, 2000, or I mean the first one really, it came out in 2006, right? Something
Yeah,
like that.
that was I think that was like a 360. I don't think it was a launch title, but it was really early into the 360's life cycle.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if because it's been 10 years, if they would have put like Prey 2 out and it was like such a small group of people that really cared and played the first one, that it would have been like confusing to put Prey 2 out there. I wonder if they just were like, hey guys, let's just reboot it,
Yeah.
because it's been so long.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
Unless you guys have anything else on Bethesda, the one thing that I just read about is Todd Howard has confirmed Elder Scrolls 6 is in development. It is going to be a very long time before it hits the light of day, because they talked about he made mention of, he's saying that the engine right now they're building an engine around it. Which I know they probably won't be building a whole new engine because they've had the same engine since like Morrowind. But apparently they're working on it and it's in development, and that for me is so exciting.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that game didn't hit till at least 2020.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't hit for probably about the same time. But so that's the Bethesda conference. So that was pre day zero. That was day zero eve. But Microsoft kicked off the next day, and Microsoft, for the first time since what of the since the first time of the E3 before the current consoles. So what was that, like 2013 was when they started talking about the Xbox One,
Oh yeah.
and everyone was like, "You guys are terrible. Like, please don't release it like this." Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think since that conference, this is the best conference Microsoft has had.
Well, yeah, because I think they finally took the message to heart. It's like, show games. We appreciate being able to play like Netflix on our consoles, but we don't need like a 30-minute presentation on it.
Yeah,
I actually think I liked last year's just a little bit more because they had a lot of the same games in this conference, and I think the reveal of a lot of those games last year was like a lot bigger to me because they revealed so many like new franchises like Sea of Thieves and Gears 4 being a new game in that installment, and then just kind of like showing them again this year wasn't as big of an impact, but it was still pretty good conference.
yeah.
Yeah.
The thing that I liked about their conference, like just from a presentation standpoint, like not like the things that they announced, but just the way they went about the conference. Like the stage itself looked awesome. I thought it was like, neat and sleek, and Sony had its like very like classy one with the actual theater, but Microsoft they had really good pacing with, here's a game, here's a smaller game, here's details about hardware, here's another game, here's details about software we're putting out, and they kind of had this ebb and flow that made it so you weren't just like inundated with one thing over and over again and over and over again. And that alone, I really liked that about the conference.
Yeah. No, for sure. And they kind of set the tone, like someone was bringing up earlier, like every one of these conferences set the tone. They set the tone by just kind of like throwing the Xbox One Slim out there right away, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
I didn't actually really expect that right away like that. I mean, I knew it was going to be there because it was so heavily rumored, but like right away, right up front, I was like, oh, it's kind of cool. They just like threw it out there, and
Do
having
do
more features than I originally thought with like the HDR gaming and whatnot. It was kind of neat to
Yeah.
see.
do either of you have Xbox Ones?
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm primarily an Xbox One player. Although after Sony's press conference, I will own a PS4 by the end of 2016.
So, yeah, I'm primarily like a PS4 gamer. But do you feel the need to upgrade to the Scorpio when it comes out?
I'd say at the moment, no. But it's like a year and a half out there, so like maybe in a year and a half, maybe there's like some big games that they show side by side, looking much better on the Scorpio, where I'm gonna be like, all right, I want a Scorpio now.
Yeah.
But it depends on price and all that too. Like right now, it sounds like it's probably gonna be a beast of a machine. I can't imagine it's gonna be too cheap.
Oh, it's going to be expensive.
Yeah.
I I am not your average video game consumer. I don't think the Scorpio is for people that just sit down and play video games. Like they get home and they want to play like the latest RPG they picked up, or play a shooter with a friend. Like I'm somebody who like does like scholarly studies of video games, and I always go for what is the updated thing. So for me personally, I don't have this gnawing need like I need food and water and shelter, but I do definitely, like, I'm going to upgrade to the Scorpio when it comes out. Like it's for me it's a must.
Okay, does anyone know what a teraflop means? Because they kept saying that. I have no idea what a teraflop is.
I don't know, but apparently a teraflop is insane, and people thought they were making that up, and it's like, no, that's a real thing.
I don't know what it means, but it sounds impressive.
It's got an 8-core processor, freaking 6 teraflops of I don't even know what the hell a teraflop is. Somebody
Yeah.
Google this. It's got 6 teraflops, whatever the heck that means. And the fact that it's going to be able to present in 4K. I think
That's a big thing.
if there's
4K.
if there's one thing that Microsoft had over Sony, I think the announcement of the Scorpio as what will potentially be the most powerful home console to date. I think that alone is the one thing that Microsoft had over Sony in terms of like reveals this year. And that's not to say that Sony can't just, hit up the drawing board and say like, well, in 2018, we're doing this and like coming up with their own thing.
Allegedly, the Scorpio is going to be more powerful than the PlayStation Neo.
Right. Well, my theory on this is that the Neo is probably going to be their version of like the Xbox One Slim. And I imagine they probably have a more powerful console coming as well, but they don't really want to reveal it because to me, like I feel like that was not a great move to reveal the Scorpio that soon because now it's like who's going to buy a Slim? And who's going
Yeah.
to even want to upgrade to a Slim? Because it's like now you got a new console coming in a year and a half. Like you just kind of killed your middle system now. Like I
Yeah.
don't really understand the thinking on that one.
That's a lot of the consensus going around is the Xbox One S. Let me show you why you will never need this console.
Cody just said Mike will upgrade to Slim because he has like 4 PS4s, I think, which is crazy. But
I have an Xbox One, but I've got like the base Xbox One that only has like 500 gigabytes of memory. And then like I saw the Xbox Slim is going to have 4 times that amount of storage space, and it's going to be way smaller. Like it looks so small compared. It looks like a PS2, like a PS2 Slim. It looks so freaking small, and I'm looking at that. I'm like, that's really cool. Oh, but wait, the Scorpio's coming out, so why should I bother? I'm very confused as to what they were thinking, and I'm very confused as to what the market is behind. Behind you can get the Xbox One, but why would you get the Xbox One when you can get a Slim? But why would you get the Slim if you're a pretty hefty gamer and you can get the Scorpio?
right, yeah, it's very very strange marketing. I wasn't quite sure in it, and I kind of have a feeling that not to jump too far ahead, but I think PlayStation was probably originally going to announce their Neo, but then once it caught wind of Microsoft, probably announcing theirs at their conference, they're like, wait, like let's hold back a second, let them reveal
Yeah.
theirs. Then we'll, like you were kind of saying, go back to the drawing board and like, maybe we can jump second on this and kind of leapfrog them. I don't really know what they're thinking. But,
Yeah, just don't show your full hand, basically.
right.
So Microsoft games?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm super excited for a lot of them. I'm actually really excited for Gears 4. Not because of what they showed at the E3 conference, but I read GI's like 10-page spread on Gears of War 4 and everything they're doing because they're trying to go back to the feel of Gears of War 1. Because the guy who's leading Coalition, which is now like the Gears of War 4 studio, like the Gears studio, like that's what they do is make Gears of War games now. And he basically said, like, Gears of War 1, we tried to do some very specific things, and we did them well. Gears of War 2 was a little bit more rushed. We tried to add too much. And he said, let's be honest, Gears of War 3 was like, how much crap can we jam-pack into this game? And even he was like, we should not have done that. And he said with Gears of War 4, he wants to put a lot more emphasis on the characters. And then a lot of the stuff that he talked about, like the weather effects that were shown off and a lot of the environmental effects that's going on. Like it's not so much a game about which guns you have. It's a game. It's entirely a game that's based on environment and not just, the waist high cover walls, but, how you can destroy the environment to either work for you or the enemies will destroy it to work against you. I think they showed that off well with Gears 4. So I'm pretty pumped for Gears 4.
Yeah.
The weapons from the Gear series have always been like my highlight from that series. It's just like the chainsaw, the Lancer. It's so fun to use, and I think that they were like smart highlighting that, even though it was an old mechanic.
Well, it's like the Lancer is like it's like this. It fulfills this like primal need of like, do you like guns? Yeah. Do you like violence? How about
Exactly.
we stick a chainsaw on the end of your
It's so good.
Yeah. So I played the first 2 games, never played the third one, and I thought they were great. I thought they were fun, and I think this game looked great. My concern is, being on a next gen system, I feel like they should have went to the drawing board a little, back to it a little bit more and just kind of revamped it a little bit more. It seems too similar to the older games. Like it didn't seem like they really pushed anything new in this game that was like, oh man, I need this, which kind of bothered me a little bit because again, without jumping too far, had another press conference, which we'll get to later, showed off their fourth game of the series and revamped everything, which got me really excited. And I feel like they just needed to revamp, just a little bit more to give me like some new ideas, some new, just I don't know. I don't know. They needed
Yeah.
something.
It's what it seems like to me is if you enjoyed the Gears series, at its origin, and then you enjoyed the main parts of Gears and what made Gears of War, that's what it seems like Gears of War 4 is going to be, and that's what's got me most excited about it.
Right, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that like, man, I just needed something new. So you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, speaking of fours, there was another 4 game at that conference, Dead Rising 4.
Yeah.
You know what? I've never been a Dead Rising fan, and it's the same thing with Dishonored. I get the appeal, but it does not appeal to me.
I played Dead Rising 1 and 2 into the ground. I loved those games.
Yeah.
They were just like Dead Rising 1 did that, everyone loves Dead Rising 1 because it was like the first game to put so many zombies on in like one area, and then, Dead Rising 3 took that to the extreme. I mean, sorry, did I say Dead Rising 2 or Dead Rising 3?
3.
Okay, yeah. Dead Rising 3 was like, I didn't get a chance to play a lot of it because I don't own an Xbox One. But I think Dead Rising 4, those mall shots and with Frank West getting back into
my gosh, yeah.
it looks so much fun. And like the power suit when he's like pulling, what was it, like a signpost out of the ground with concrete and just like swinging it around. It's like they know exactly what makes Dead Rising as fun as it is.
He's got like the exoskeleton armor from the movie Elysium.
It looks so good. Like that one, I think I will absolutely play into the ground as much as I played the first 2.
Oh my god.
So I'm someone who's like very zombie fatigued, but man, like I've always been like I've always liked Dead Rising, especially the original one, because it's just like it's just about like over the top fun. Like you go into a mall and you can take any item and just like kill any zombie in any way. You know what I mean? Like it's just over the top and goofy and fun, and it's just all about having fun.
Yeah.
And so for them to like bring that back and then bring Frank back, like I love this trailer how like zoomed in on his phone, he put like hashtag Frank's back, and it's just like all the crazy stuff you guys were mentioning that he's going around doing, and even like towards the end of that trailer, like he tied up all the zombies and like made his own Christmas tree out of them and like lit them on fire. Like I just thought that was amazing. It's so funny.
No, I'm pretty excited for. I don't know if I can't decide if I'll pick it up or not. Like, I didn't really get into Dead Rising 1. Like I played through, I beat it like once and I got like one of the endings. And I was like, that's really all I need. And I played through Dead Rising 2 and I don't remember anything from Dead Rising 2. I didn't play through 3. So I don't know. I don't feel like there's a niche audience for it, but it's another game. I'm just like, I don't need that in my life.
Yeah, totally. Do you play State of Decay then? Because they announced.
Oh my god!
Yeah, that one I love. I love State of Decay.
State of Decay. I picked it up on the PC when it launched, and I was like, oh my god, this would be an amazing game if it ran a lot better. Because when it came out, like they had such bad frame rate drops, and there was so many like collision detection issues. Like trying to run through like doors, and then your character's shoulder just gets like magically hung up on a door frame, and you're like, oh god, I'm dead. And but I played through like the whole thing, and I thought it was a blast because like that's like I'm a huge like zombie guy. Like I love zombies, like survival horror games. And the thing about Dead State was like, or not Dead State, State of Decay was just like it's a zombie survival game. That's what it is. Like you build your bases, you build up your characters, and you just try to live. And that's what I really loved about it. So Dead State or State of Decay 2 coming out is, I don't know why I keep saying Dead State. It's like this really obscure Steam game. State of Decay 2 coming out and then having 4-player co-op and what looks to be like customizable settlement buildings. It's going to be a must for me.
there's like the whole idea of resource management and settlement building in like a giant open world zombie game is something that's like been played around with in like the idea in the whole video game industry for a long time. But I think State of Decay is like the one that like has done that idea the best so far, even with all of its technical difficulties. But that whole like community building mechanic, the whole like idea of going into houses, like looking for resources, bringing them back, it was so well done. And if that game would have been polished just a little bit more, I think it would have been 10 out of 10. Like no no question.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I've yet to play the original one. I missed it on 360, and I was going to pick it up on Xbox One when it came out when they revamped it. But I think there was a bunch of other games that came out around the same time, so I never got around to picking that one up. But I love the trailer for this one. It was really cool the way like the car came slamming into the gas station and killed all the zombies. But
Oh, yeah.
speaking of cars, my favorite announcement I think from this press conference was probably Forza Horizon 3.
You know, I'm not a racing game fan, but I watched
neither.
that trailer and I was like, wow, that actually looks really cool.
Yeah, I'm not into racing games at all either, but I'm a huge Burnout fan, especially 3. That's like one of my favorite games of all time, and I'm not even into racing at all, so that like says a lot about how amazing that game is. But that's like the closest thing to Burnout 3, the Horizon franchise, just because of how arcadey it is, and so. I don't know. This just was like breathtaking. I love the Australian environment. Oh man, I want to play that right now.
I was laughing hysterically when because I watched the Game Bowl, like I watched you guys live cover the Microsoft conference, and it's just the beginning of that trailer is just like these long sweeping like panoramic views of like the Australian outback, and then they show like kangaroos running through fields, and then Cody goes, and then like all of a sudden a car just flies into view, and Cody's like, why did they start it like that? like I was like, what is this, like another Far Cry game? It's like, nope, Forza.
It was a weird introduction, but I kind of liked it. It set the tone for that game.
Yeah, everything they're doing with like the ability to just drop in and out of like your friends' races looks pretty cool. The fact that they're doing like all these different levels of like off-road and on-road tracks looks awesome. Oh, you know, jump in there, Thomas.
Oh no! I really don't have much to say. I'm not a gigantic racing fan either. But I always prefer racing games, which is like a little bit of a twist on them. I think those are the best kind of racing games for me anyway. But Forza, it looked really shiny.
Yeah, no, the cars always look really good.
Oops, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I get.
Okay, sorry. I think I jumped in, but my mic popped out for a second. So sorry about that.
No, you're good.
Anything else you guys noticed from Microsoft?
Can I say how underwhelmed I am by the Scalebound trailer?
Yeah, it
Oh,
didn't look
yeah.
that great.
I-
It looked like Lost Planet a lot.
Yeah,
But-
it's like I want to love that game.
No,
But,
I do too.
I've been
really do.
underwhelmed since they showed that. I think the biggest thing that bugs me about the game is the main character. He just seems like such a douchebag. I hate
Yeah.
characters like that
Yeah.
are like over the top and like, let's go, guys, and just like I don't know, just like with his like punk rock, like like he puts on his headphones, he's like, let's go, I don't know. It just everything about that
See,
character bugs me.
when I see that kind of character, like with the Devil May Cry reboot, like when I see that kind of character, I instantly just be like, okay, I can't take this seriously, and if I don't take it seriously, I'll enjoy it. So like I see that, and like the thing that got me was like the only part of that trailer that got me hyped was when he puts the headphones on and this really freaking awesome like hype dubstep rock music comes on. I was like, that's what I want. Like that's my favorite video game soundtrack of all time is the Metal Gear Rising soundtrack, because it's the only one I know of that's just hardcore rock that doesn't just sit in the background. Like the last game I can think of that had any kind of like hardcore rock was like Brutal Legends, and that was only if you were driving around in your vehicle.
Oh,
but,
dude, Donkey Kong Country, Tropical Freeze had hardcore metal in the boss battles.
Are you serious?
Yes, there's a couple boss battles because like Cody's been streaming and we were talking about that like one of the first boss battles has like a crazy like it turns into like a metal song like out of nowhere and you're like fighting like a walrus or a sea lion, sorry, and then all of a sudden like metal music starts playing. It's like where did this come from? Yeah.
That was the thing that sold me, but like just watching the gameplay, um, it seemed very slow and very sluggish. It was I don't know how to describe it other than like it didn't feel like very fast paced. Like it felt like you're just kind of like the reticles just kind of meandering around. Like you felt like you were just throwing, you know, the projectiles at like the big boss, which is basically Cromarax from Borderlands 1. They're just like throwing projectiles at these giant like you said Lost Planet like glowing weak spots. Um I love the thing that blows me away is that this is Platinum. And Platinum, I love. Like I think everything they do is just so over the top and so ridiculous. But they nail that feeling of like being this awesome, powerful character, and I wasn't getting that with this trailer.
Yeah.
And I feel like I need some hands-on time with it, and I want to get the game, but like that what they showed was not like it did not hook me at all.
Yeah, I didn't really understand what was going on most of the time. It was sort of like there was a lot going on, and it was like it was co-op, but it was also you'd also like keep getting on and off your dragon, which like in theory sounds like a really cool idea, being able to like fight with your dragon and being able to use him in different ways to like defeat the enemies. But it just I don't think it's just like it just didn't come off as very exciting.
Well, and that's kind of how I felt about the Final Fantasy 15, the gameplay they showed Final Fantasy 15. It's like, okay, he's been dodge rolling using invincibility frames, dodge rolling through this giant fist for like a solid minute now, and he hasn't done anything. And then I didn't visibly see him do any like to me like there wasn't enough UI feedback to let me know that he was actually damaging the boss, and then all of a sudden he has this like this Mr. Freeze grenade bomb move that just cuts off the Titan's arm, and I'm
yeah,
like,
it was very strange. Like just the way he failed for like 5 minutes, and then he's like, "All right, I'm just gonna go use my ice powers now." And I don't know. The character banter was like really corny too, when he's like, "You're out," and I was just like, "Oh no." Because that's the thing that bothers me the most in some of those games is just like the I don't know, like the melodrama dialogue, and I just hope there's not too much of that because I love Final Fantasy, but I can't stand that in, like the newer Final Fantasy games, just like their banter that way.
yeah, it feels so unnatural. When Cody says, "I think that guy didn't have a clue what he was doing."
Yeah, and then afterwards he goes, "That's great," and he like threw like 2 thumbs up or something. It's like I don't know about that.
Yeah, no, that was a rather tepid trailer at best.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's yeah, like overall, to wrap things up with the Microsoft conference, it's the best showing they've had for like since Xbox One has launched, since the year before Xbox One has launched. I think it's honestly the best showing they've had. I think it kind of they showed up, they knew what they were doing. They took all of the criticism from the last few years of people being like, please just show us games.
Yeah, it it kind of sucks that that their conference was so great, but then Sony even had like even more fantastic ones.
No, Microsoft had a really solid showing. Like they had a really good press conference. I'd give them like a B minus. I'd give them a B, but then Sony shows up and we can talk about that. But I liked, as an Xbox fan, I really liked the Microsoft press conference a lot.
I also did too.
Should we jump into Ubi since that was next?
Oh my God, can we please jump to
let's start with that show at the beginning.
That was awesome.
That was like one of my favorite moments from the C3. Like I know a lot of people were like, "Oh, dudes, just stop!" But I don't know. I love that. I love that it starts with Queen and they're just like having a fun time. And literally, like that's like the song.
The giraffe. Hashtag
yeah.
Giraffe.
Yeah, the giraffe. The lion was really dancing. He was really getting into it.
I love that like the lion had like the lion costume, and then if you look at his shoes, he's wearing like just these like plain everyday sneakers that he looks like he wears around his house.
Yeah. Oh, I loved it.
I thought it was awesome. Like when that was what you came into, like that was how they kicked off the conference. You're like, oh my god, this conference is just gonna be wacky and awesome, and
Yeah, it was a
like
good way to present that game too, because like a lot of times they bring up Just Dance like in the middle of their conference, and everyone's just like, "Oh man, like they just showed all these big games, and now we got to watch Just Dance." But like to start off with like a song, a number, and a dance, and just like show that game and be like, "All right, guys, it's coming out soon." And shocker, they even said NX. So I was like, "Whoa, don't hear that too often." But
yeah,
Um, I thought the best game at that conference, Fractured Butthole.
that
Yeah.
was that whole sequence of Trey Parker, Matt Stone coming out and just cracking these jokes that are just right on the cusp of like they're being dead serious,
Yeah.
but the secondary meaning, like it was so awesome.
I couldn't believe when they made that Kanye joke. Like I was
It
laughing
was
so hard, and then they
so
showed
funny.
they showed the audience, and like nobody was laughing. It's like,
Yeah, no, like
oh, you're kidding me.
no one understood the gay fish joke, and I'm like, oh my god, you people, you don't
It
understand how funny this is.
honestly that took me a minute, but I did get it. It took me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I feel like that was because I think a lot of the people that were at these conferences, like I feel like there's a lot of journalistic people there that might not be keen on the the whole South Park thing.
Yeah.
And like that's fine and everything. Like they made the jokes and I was laughing, and I know a lot of other South Park fans were dying. Like that whole showing of like how they introduced that game and everything they're showing for that game, and the combat system actually looks really cool. Like go ahead.
Sorry, Carson's. I'm still laughing at Carson's backstory for your hero.
Oh my god, yeah. Yeah, you walked in on your parents doing it, and like then you became this tragic superhero as a result. Like Cartman, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And he goes, "No, it's not." It just retorts. It looks and I like that if you pre-order it, you get the stick of truth too, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, which is something I'm probably gonna have to do in the near future because I never played through the Stick of Truth, but I know I really need to. It's
Yeah.
$30 on Steam right now, so like the whole E3 conference made me go back and like look at my backlog of things that I haven't played that I want to. Stick of Truth is on there.
I'll talk about how I'm going to go through my backlog of games once we get to the Sony conference and a very particular cinematic trailer that's confused and astounded everyone. But Ubisoft as a whole, that was probably for me, I think that was my favorite in terms of like entertainment value, just alone because they did the Just Dance thing. They brought out the Matt and Trey, and that whole thing was hysterical. I really liked a lot of the games that they showed. I'm really excited for Steep because I was a huge like when they showed Steep, I was like, this looks really freaking cool. And the more they showed it, first of all, the snow tech looks amazing. And I was a huge SSX fan, like SSX
Yes.
1, 2,
Yes.
3, Tricky. I did not like the reboot.
Yeah.
I feel like they tried really hard to make it. They tried to like make it like this arcade, like you have to get scores and points, and
Oh
everything
man,
has to be about speed.
they killed it. Like SSX, I threw that in the chat. That was like one of my favorite like PS2 era games. And man, yeah, that reboot. They were like, oh, to get to the top of this mountain, you got to have goggles, like otherwise your eyes freeze up, or you got to have like a lantern on your head so you can go through a cave, and you have to like get so many points to get there. And it was just like, no, like just let me snowboard. I don't want to like, like save up like these points and climb higher and higher. Just like let me do what I want, like the older games. I don't know.
Yeah,
They took away what was like so magical about some of the other games, and so yeah, like you were saying, like this was like, man, like this could be like the next SSX. You know what I mean? It could be just
yeah.
so much better than that reboot in every way, and so far it looks like it is. So.
I'm really excited for it. Like watching everything they showed. Like they have the competitive aspect, but then they just showed like people just snowboarding, and not just snowboarding, like snowboarding, not parasailing, but like parachuting down the mountain, and like using the wingsuit, and seeing like there's all these different ways of traversal. And then they showed like the like they zoomed out on the map and they showed like the fact that the map is like this fully 3D area that you can like go where you like pick where you want to go, and then you can just snowboard and just go do what you want, and like that's like I want a snowboard game. I want it to be like those old like 1990s snowboard documentaries where like filters, hey man, nice shot is playing in the background, and you're just flying down all these awesome slopes and everything, and like that's what I want, and that's what Steep looks like, and it got me so excited for that game.
I like how brutal the crashes were because it looked like such a arcade type game until like one of the dudes like crashed into the side of the cliff when they were squirrel sitting down. He's screaming and you could hear like the crunch, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, no, it's brutal.
Yeah,
I'm pretty pumped for Steep. Steep looks awesome.
Yeah. How about you, Thomas? Did you see anything else at the Ubisoft conference?
I was I mean, other than Watch Dogs 2, which is like the big one, but I thought For Honor was like one of my favorites up there for that show.
Yeah.
Because like I talked about I talked about this with you guys before. I thought it looks like a better version of the Xbox game, that Xbox Gladiator game.
Rise, Son of Rome.
Yeah, that one. Because I think the way that you fight in that game, just like whether you can like point your sword upward to the left or the right to be able to parry, and then you can swing left, right, or up, and I think it's just like a much better mechanic than like Rise, where it's like you go up to someone and you press a certain button to kill them. But I thought, the whole castle siege sequence when they like when they're fighting the samurai, and then when he finally gets to the samurai boss, and that like boss battle where he's just like it's a simple boss battle. It's like no different than any of the other soldiers you fight, but it's just like a little bit tougher. I thought that that whole sequence was really good. We've been seeing a lot of the multiplayer, which is like functions in a very similar way with like the left and right blocking and being able to predict your opponent's move and parry them and being able to fight back like that. I think For Honor is like it's really gonna nail what makes like sword fighting fun in a video game, and I think it's gonna like it looks really good, and I'm really excited for it.
For Honor looks pretty great. I'm so excited to see how that kind of game kind of develops over time, because it seems like such a labor of love. Because that guy comes out on stage and he looks like he's been ripped straight out of the pages of like a Fire and Ice novel.
Yeah.
And he's like, you could tell he's like, man, what I wouldn't do to like be a Viking. Like that guy was so excited.
I love that he's got like this big grizzly beard too, and he's just got like this. He like puts on this show. He's just like in the world of For Honor.
Yeah,
he just like gets so into it. It's amazing.
That was pretty good.
I immediately signed up for the alpha after that show. And
nice.
Yeah, I hope I get in there because I want to play. I want to be a samurai.
Okay, I chose Viking, so hopefully we can battle it out. That'd be really cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
that looks pretty awesome. I'm excited for I'm okay. I'm excited for Watch Dogs 2. I liked Watch Dogs 1, and I think Watch Dogs 2, I think that they can only if Watch Dogs 2 is just more of the same and a different storyline, I think that's fine. But if they try to improve on mechanics too, which it looks like they're trying to add like tons more gadgets and stuff, like that looks awesome too.
Yeah, the drone stuff was they really showcased that one more than the they didn't have that in the first one, and I think that stuff looks really cool.
Yeah, no, definitely.
All right, we going to Sony.
Yeah, the big one.
Oh my God, Sony. I will say this about the Sony press conference. Like I've always had an appreciation for Sony. Like I had a PlayStation 1, I had a PlayStation 2, and a PlayStation 3, but Xbox has always been my home. Just because I've always enjoyed the games that have come out on Xbox. They've always been like in the market for shooters more so than PlayStation, because like they have both PlayStation and Xbox One have COD and Battlefield and Ghost Recon, but Xbox had Halo and Gears, and that's what drew me to it initially. But after the Sony press conference, like everything they showed in that press conference actually made me I was happy to be a gamer again. Like it renewed my love for gaming because of all of the games they showed and how much these games have improved and all the just the way they presented so much of it was just incredible.
Yeah, I got to say again, setting the tone, the way they said it. One of my favorite conferences of all time was Nintendo's in 2011 because they had a full orchestra, and it was like the 25th anniversary of Zelda, and so they played like this big Zelda orchestration, and then they went right into Skyward Sword, and that's what they did, with God of War. They had this massive orchestra playing, and you knew it was God of War. And just from them to like play that big like 4 minute like epic piece,
Oh,
and
I
then go
know.
right into the trailer, it's like, oh my gosh, this is just like 2011. This is gonna be like they're setting the tone. This is gonna be amazing.
Yeah, I love the what's his name comes out on stage and he's like, try walking out on stage to an orchestra, man. You feel so. And I was
Yeah.
like,
John Layden.
yeah. And like the God of War 4 trailer, like, man, that stirred some emotions. It's like this beautiful father son moment of I'm not a hunter. I don't kill bugs in my house. Because I just can't bring myself to do it. But like I understand the beauty of it and like that moment of your first kill, because my dad was a big hunter. And that moment of like your first kill, like it's this rite of passage, and they really put an emphasis on Kratos. It's freaking Kratos, man, but he's somehow like a good dad.
Yeah.
And it's this moment where you have this like tender moment with this guy who's just been this like brooding, muscle bound badass for like the last almost decade.
Yeah. Yeah.
I only ever played God of War 3. I didn't get to play the first two, but so I don't have like a particular connection to Kratos or God of War, but seeing him step out of the shadows and like being able to see him the first time, I was just like, what?
Yeah.
And that was really surprising, and it was really like, all right, PlayStation is bringing out like one of their most recognizable characters to start off the conference, and they started off so strong with that trailer.
I like the reveal too, how it's his boy playing with the toys and stuff, and then you just hear boy, and
Oh
then
yeah,
just the reveal of him walking out of the darkness, and telling his kid like, "I'm hungry, feed us," and he throws him the bow.
yeah.
It's such a good, just old man Kratos coming out. It was such a strong appearance, and then mentioning before how when I was talking about Gears, I wanted to see them like revamp stuff. Like they revamped this game, and that's what I wanted to see because after three, I was just kind of like, I think I'm done, with this franchise. Like I've got enough of it. Like I get
Yeah.
it. It's like this 7 or 8 hour action epic every time, but like I've gotten enough of that now. But then for them to turn, probably one of the most like I think a lot of people actually hate Kratos. When you look up like comments online, like a lot of people don't like him because he's just this like screamy guy that just he's killing every second. And
Like he's always on roids, and he's always like, yeah, like you said, he's always just yelling for no
Yeah.
reason.
If you want a good interpretation of what the internet thinks of Kratos, go look up a video called "Riding the Bus with Kratos is Terrifying." It's a really good video.
We'll look that up after,
but-
but yeah, it's just like it's amazing that they toned him down, and then like his kid is like teaching him how to be human again. Like at least that's like what the directors have told some of the people
Yeah.
that I've interviewed, and then I like that tone, and they're like walking through the woods, and like you're saying like hunting deer, and like there's these long sections where he's just talking to his son and like teaching him things without him like murdering people or screaming, and it's just
Yeah.
like totally different game.
It looks very different from God of War 3. Being
Mhm.
like they just like, I feel like Sony's like really throwing in a lot. It sounds weird to compare God of War to The Last of Us, but that's what it looked like the over the shoulder perspective
I can see
and
that.
being able and like walking, just like the way that you walk and the way that you like the camera is angled. It just everything, every like third person game nowadays from Sony looks like they're throwing in elements from like The Last of Us,
Yeah.
and it which is great because The Last of Us nailed like a lot of stuff, but I don't know, it just it's
Yeah.
something that stood out to me.
The thing that for me, this was the thing that was like that made this E3 so beautiful for me was the trailer that I watched, and I had no idea what it was. I'm like, dude, PT is dead, and my buddy's just over my shoulder. He's like, it's not PT, but it is PT, and you know what it is. I'm like, no, I don't know what the hell this is, and I'm watching it, and I'm getting spooked out, and then they show the 7 and Resident Evil 7
And that was like I actually freaking like I teared up. Like that was the thing that was like, oh my god, like Resident Evil is responsible for some of my greatest childhood memories. Like me and my buddies playing Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3, Resident Evil 4. I've played almost every Resident Evil game to date. It's one of my favorite game franchises, probably behind for me it's like Halo and Resident Evil because they've been around for so long. I think outside of the Super Mario series, I think Resident Evil's the game series I've been playing the absolute longest. And to see after what the debacle that was Resident Evil 5 and Resident Evil 6, great shooters, terrible Resident Evil games, and then to see them go back to their mystery roots, their horror roots, their roots of intrigue and suspense in a way that is very modern, that first person flashlight game that's been like Amnesia and Slender and Outlast, and to go and to take a very modern take on this game series, and it just looks terrifying.
Yeah, it does. It's very scary.
And I love that. And like then they said full VR support. I'm like, well, now I need to buy a VR set too.
No.
Yeah,
I'm not doing anything like that.
Yeah.
No.
That's what I want.
Did either of you hear the guy scream when the guy walked by in the
Yeah, no, the dude just yells out in the crowd. He's like, oh. There's I saw a tweet of a guy at the IGN offices who snuck up on one of his coworkers. This is fine. He snuck up on his coworker while his coworker's like really intensely into the game and just scares the hell out of him. And the guy's like got his head in his hands. He's so freaking frightened.
It's it's really refreshing to see them go back to like scary games rather than Resident Evil 5 and Resident Evil 6, because I know neither of those games got like a huge good reception to them, but
yes, they did.
Resident Evil 6,
Resident Evil 5 and Resident Evil 6 sold well, and that upsets me. And there was a solid enough fan base that people liked it, and they reviewed well, but like the hardcore Resident Evil fan base hated them. Like I played Resident Evil 5. I'm like, this isn't a Resident Evil game. This isn't a Resident Evil game. It's a third person shooter.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, I think the thing that people are going to be like the most happy about is it looks scary again. It looks really scary. I was covering my eyes during that. I don't do well with scary games, and that just like the trailer was enough to get me like curled up in my seat. But to even think about playing a game like that on VR, no way. I can't.
Yeah.
I would never be able to do it.
I'd have a heart attack. I'm someone that I like those kind of games, but like I can't do it either. Like it just I can't. Like PT nearly killed me.
Oh god, that was a demo, and that was the scariest thing I ever played in a very long time.
Yeah, especially like I can't remember the ghost girl's name, but like she would just kind of randomly appear in different places.
It's
The worst is when you just hear her ragged breathing over your shoulder, like, oh no.
Yeah, and then you turn around and she like screams and goes through you or something. It's like I can't do that. But I was super hyped about this because like I've been a big fan of a couple of the Resident Evil games. I can't say like I've enjoyed the whole series, but like I think 1 and 4 probably being my favorite.
Lisa, what's her name?
Lisa, okay.
Lisa, yeah. And yeah, so like I thought this was PT. I was like, no way, are they bringing PT back? But then, like that reveal, like I was shouting. I was like, I couldn't believe it was real. But I think like you guys were saying, like I think they looked back and they saw like what other modern horror games were doing, and they're like, I think we have to go back to the drawing board and do this the same way we did for.
Yeah. I'll let you go in a second, Thomas. It seems to me between like Capcom and EA actually taking a step back and saying, what are our fans saying? How do we get that audience back that loved us from yesteryear? But how do we keep our modern audiences? And I think that it really shows with RE7 and with some of the stuff EA's doing. But Thomas, you were saying,
yeah. Well, they didn't bring PT back, but they did bring a certain someone who was in PT.
Oh my God, yes.
I don't know what the Death Stranded trailer is. I don't know what it is. Nobody knows what it is. It's Hideo Kojima. I think you'd use that as an adjective to describe this. But I want it, whatever it is. Like I'm that trailer was just this so surreal, but at the same time, like it made sense in its own right. Of like, I don't know what I'm looking at, but yeah, all right.
Hey, I think the best trailers are the ones that you have to ask questions afterwards because they're the most interesting. It's like if you have to ask questions, like it grabs your attention because it's like what's going on here, without showing you too much.
Yeah.
I did see an article go up today with Kojima, and he explained it a little bit more, but not much. It was very strange the way he talked about this game. He said it's like he wants there to be like a connection between life and death, and everything's connected, and there's like something with like the baby, connected to.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like something between life and death. So I don't know what that means, but of course, there were like dead animals all over the beach. So there's something going on there.
I don't know that scene with the dead animals on the beach and Norman Reedus looking out into the sea with those 5 like human figures floating was enough to sell me on the game, even though I know nothing about it.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
Such a masterfully directed cinematic.
Absolutely.
Because it is weirdly internally consistent. Like if you take a step back and look at it, it makes no sense in the bounds of human logic. But in its own sense, it is very internally consistent, and it raises so many questions about what is this? What does this all mean? And the fact that Norman Reedus is there as like this very human element amongst this Lewis Carroll cyberpunk like wasteland. And I actually looked up what the word was. It's called stranding.
Stranding,
Stranding, which is actually when a sea creature washes up on a beach. It's basically another word for beaching. And I'm very confused. Like I'm very interested into what that means. The whole idea of water being symbolic of life, and of things coming out of the the ocean that is the life giver. I'm very interested to see what Kojima is going to do with this title, and Norman Reedus posting one of the greatest tweets ever of Hideo Kojima sipping Konami tears.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's great. I'm sure it makes sense. The whole trailer makes sense in Kojima's logic.
It might be an indication of what the game is like, and it might not be an indication at all of what the game is like. But only time will tell.
I wonder if it's Norman Reedus that really wants to work with Kojima, or Kojima that really wants to work with Norman Reedus.
yeah,
I would argue it's a little from column A and a little from column B.
yeah. Yeah, they're both interesting characters. So
what would have really made that trailer is if Norman Reedus, they show Norman Reedus and everybody's like, oh my god, it's Norman Reedus, and he picks up his baby and he looks up and then he looks back down at his baby at that moment where he's shocked, and instead of the baby disappearing, it's Guillermo del Toro's face. Baby.
Yeah, he's the last part of the trifecta. They just need to bring him
Yeah,
back.
no.
Yeah.
Well, even like with all the stuff that happened with Konami and Silent Hills being dissolved, and I still say we should all just go burn Konami's offices to the ground after what they've done to all these beloved game series.
I have no idea what Konami is thinking or doing.
They're making
with letting them go.
You know what they're doing? They're making pachinko machines.
yeah,
and Del Toro, like even Del Toro's like Kojima's not dead. Kojima's not dead. Reedus, working with Kojima, they're still doing something. There's still something going on, and nobody had any idea what it was. And for it to be something that's not, Silent Hills and PT, but to be very Kojima is awesome.
Yeah, that man knows how to make horror games. I will tell you that much.
Oh,
and so even if this new game isn't a horror game, I still have faith that it's going to be a definitive Kojima game, and it's going to be a great game.
I own Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, 3, Peace Walker, 4, and then I own Ground Zeroes, and one day I'll get Phantom Pain. But I own all of them, and it's made me want to go back and play through them all and kind of re-experience, Kojima's evolution over the last like almost 2 decades of game making.
I didn't finish Phantom Pain because I have a terrible problem with if I get stuck on one part for too long, I'll just like put a game down and forget about it for a long time. I got stuck on one mission in Phantom Pain and I just didn't go back to it.
Yeah.
But that game is really good. It's even without the experience of playing any Metal Gear Solid game before 4, I can tell you that, 5 is it's so good. The stealth mechanics in that game are just like as good as you can get in a video game for stealth, for like stealth options.
Gotcha. All right. We're actually surprisingly running very low on time here. So your
Can I
guys'
throw one more game out there?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I got to throw this one out real quick because I was at the movie theater event that they were throwing. They had like 80 theaters around the U.S. that they were doing this in, and then I think a few more in Canada. And the thing that got me to like jump out of my seat and scream was Crash. I was so happy they brought Crash back.
Oh
Or
yeah,
at least they're bringing back
remasters.
1, 2, and 3. Yeah, remasters of 1, 2, and 3 on PS4 that blew my mind.
I was like, when I saw him come out on stage with the Crash music, I was like, okay, what are they doing with Crash? And like, they're bringing him into Skylanders. I'm like, that's pretty cool, and they're remastering it. And I was like, you know what? That's fine. That's absolutely fine. They don't need to make another Crash game because I'm afraid of what they do with a new Crash game. Just bring back the old ones. They were awesome, and then they showed like these brief screenshots of like what looks to be like Crash Bandicoot in the Unreal 4 engine, and I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah,
It was like as a kid, I played Crash 2 and Crash 3 so much on my PlayStation 1. Those games were great. I never got the chance to play Crash 1. But no, now that these remasters are coming out, I will absolutely play Crash 1. And it really makes me think about, how they're going to remaster them, because I feel like just putting on a new coat of paint on like the original code of the game won't necessarily
Oh no, they're going to be
work.
rebuilt. I think they even said they're rebuilding it from the ground up.
Okay, yeah, then that makes me really happy. I want to be able to move diagonally.
I got to throw one more out there real quick too. Sorry,
go ahead.
I keep bringing it up, but
No, go ahead.
Zelda, we have to throw Zelda out there because we got to talk about
my
Nintendo
gosh.
for like
Yep,
just
yep.
that got me so hyped because like we knew like very little about this game, and then they threw that 3-minute trailer out there, and everything was new. Like it's like what he's using other weapons beside the Master Sword. He's using spears. He's jumping now. He's got a hang glider. Like what's going on?
Yeah.
Like he's cooking. Like what is going on?
It's such a departure from everything that's Zelda, but at the same time, it's very much Legend of Zelda at its core.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh man, and then just what they showed in the stream, like it started up like all I've ever wanted is to just let me roam free right from the start, like the original game, and that's what they did. Is they went right back to it's almost like a Souls game, the way you like awaken in the beginning, and you don't really know what's going on. Like you got to figure it out for yourself by like walking around the environment and talking to people and picking stuff up.
And they said that from what I was watching, there were mentions that you can pretty much do the game in like all the shrines and everything in whatever order you want. Like you can just go
Oh,
and do.
like the new DS one.
Yes, yeah,
well,
very much.
And
So.
even beyond that, they give you even more freedom because there was an interview with Alan Numa from Polygon where he said, "Yeah, you can just go straight to the final boss fight and you can take on Ganon, and you're a crazy person if you do that, but you can do that and you can do it
What?
naked." So,
Well, there's going to be like speed runs of that.
oh yeah,
Cody's in the chat. He says this Zelda game is going to be the one that 20 years later you'll go dig out your NX/Wii U just to play this game because it's one of the most unique main console Zelda games yet. I think it's absolutely. I can't think of another like. And I'm going to rule Hyrule Warriors out because it's not like a mainline Zelda game. But if you look at all the mainline Zelda games, it is the most unique by a long shot. It is the. I think it is the only Zelda game I can think of that is entirely non-linear. Like I can't think of another Zelda game that isn't linear, like that doesn't kind of railroad you into you have to do this one and then this one and then this one. And a lot of the stuff that they're doing, my only fear is like, is that it seems like a lot of open area, but it's not very densely packed. Like if you look at a lot of the other Legend of Zelda games, like that was the biggest thing for me in Twilight Princess is like, here's Hyrule Field, but there's nothing to do in Hyrule Field. You just have to go. It's just basically a traveling point. It's this.
So I've read some articles today because a lot of people are concerned about that, and it sounds like there's like over 100 hidden temples, and then there's like 4 or 5 like
100?
major. Yes, over 100 of like
my
the smaller
God.
dungeons that they showed in the stream, and then there's like 4 or 5
Holy.
major temples that you can go to. So, and
Wow.
then besides that, it sounds like there's major towns and stuff that they pulled out of this demo because they thought people weren't ready for it yet. But they have all these towns with, it sounds like NPCs that you can do trading with and crafting. And like, I was like, oh my gosh! Like once I started hearing this, and just the lore of this game is so different from the other Zeldas. Like you're not like starting where like Ganon just waltzed in and started causing trouble like in all the other games. Like you are born into this world where Ganon has ruled for 100 years, I guess, and like destroyed Hyrule, and everything is crumbling. They said even the Master Sword is like decaying, and that to me is just like so interesting. It's so different from any other Zelda.
I'm very curious as to how they're going to fit it into the entire the Zelda not trope, but like the like every Legend of Zelda game is based around Ganondorf comes to power, the goddesses are failing the world. The hero of time is born. The hero of time defeats Ganon, or doesn't in the case of Hyrule Historia, and like how that whole cycle of the hero of time being reborn to save the world, how it's going to fit into that, because it's a very different game structure. And with what you're telling me here, I am very curious as to how that's all gonna play out.
Yeah.
But here's the big question, though: is this finally going to be the game that gets people to buy Wii U's?
It's gotten me to buy a Wii U.
I think it's going to be the game that gets people to buy an NX.
And I'm gonna wait to see what everything comes out with the NX, because there's a lot of Wii U games I want, and if there's no backwards compatibility, then for me I don't know. Hey,
I think if Nintendo has been pretty good about a lot of their backwards compatibility stuff, if history has anything to say about it.
yeah.
For sure.
So all right, guys. I'm gonna cut us off there. We're running fairly high here. But thank you both for joining me. Thomas, thanks for coming on. You did a great job for your first time. Thanks so much, man.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I
Jason,
really enjoyed it.
yeah. No. Anytime, man. Jason, thanks for joining me once again. I always enjoy having you on. And thanks to Cody, who's the one behind the scenes hosting the stream here, and everybody who joined us on the stream, and everybody who downloaded this. You can find this podcast on Podbean or on iTunes, and we pretty much get it up whenever we can. It's a pretty lax thing, but if you're watching this in the future or listening to this in the future, thank you so much. Thank you for everybody who joined us. So again, this is the Games on Tap podcast. Happens every 2 weeks. So the next time will actually be, it's the 15th now. So the 29th, and that's actually going to be a very tense one for me, because I've got a presentation I have to prepare within the next week and a half after this. Thank you everybody for joining us, and we will all see you next time. Make sure to check out all of the E3 coverage that the Game Bolt is doing. We're doing our own E3 awards. We're doing press conference reviews, and we're doing our reaction articles. And we actually you can check out our Twitch and check out the VODs of all of the live reactions that we had to the press conferences. So thank you everybody for joining us, and have a nice night.
See ya.
Bye.